That's probably the biggest mistake I see. A lot of people who enter franchising think, I get into franchising. Franchising is like passive income and become rich. There's nothing further from the truth. Just remember, you're not in the cleaning industry anymore. And I'm like, what? I'm in the franchising business, and it is. You will stop being an NDIS provider and become a franchisor. And that is a completely different business. The economy has always been disrupted. Since the Industrial Revolution, the economy has been getting disrupted. And cleaning I often call the original subscription business. It's a very solid and predictable. Now the fun starts.
Yeah.
All right, welcome to the Mastering Podcast. Today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Lucas Meadowcroft, Don Small, and our special guest today is Damien Boehm. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank Damien, how do you pronounce that surname? Is that Boehm? Or?
Yeah, you can pronounce it Boehm, Boehm. I've heard 5-7 different pronunciations. So, yeah, any way you like, really. So I'm not precious about it.
All right. I'm going to kick off. What was your first ever job?
My first ever job was working at a servo, so doing night shift. And I remember getting paid about $10 an hour doing that. And even the manager said it's a bit low, the wage, and I was excited to take it. I was very happy to get that first job.
$10 an hour. Yeah. I started my full-time occupation as an apprentice carpenter, and I was getting paid $20 a day.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit older.
Might be just a fraction. And so you're born in Adelaide?
I wasn't born in Adelaide. I was born in Germany.
Okay.
But I grew up in Adelaide.
Grew up, yep.
Yeah. So
just give us a quick snapshot of what that looked like growing up.
It was, I don't know, there's a lot to say about Adelaide. So, sorry for anyone from Adelaide. Yeah.
Adelaide might disagree, but I'm not one, but yeah.
Well, one of my daughters is named Adelaide now, so Adelaide's very fond. It's a fond name for me. But look, it had its challenges. So I was growing up with my mum and my sister. My mum was a single mum at the time, and I had an interesting childhood. And then when I was about 14 or 15, I had to sort of look after myself. And that, again, one of those good learning experiences when you're young. But I learned a lot of lessons from that. And then I spent some time away from school. And then I came back to school in the end and did my matric, went on to university. I tried engineering. I wasn't very good at it. I ended up doing classics and Latin and Greek. And finally, I got to a stage where I probably needed a real job rather than, not to say that working as a servo is not a real job, but, a career. And so I thought, well, there's not too many options for a Latin and Greek scholar. So I thought I would do a English teaching course, and I did that. And that's when I started traveling. I went to Korea, I went to Indonesia, and had a couple of adventures doing that before I came back to Australia.
Did you work over in those regions, or was that purely just travelling entertainment?
No, I worked there. So I worked in Korea, I worked in Indonesia. So, it's an interesting time.
All right. Yeah. And then back in Australia, how did your entrepreneurial journey start?
Well, my entrepreneurial journey started not intentionally. So I think this is one of those things where if you studied law or you study engineering or something, like your career path is laid out for you, but if you do a general degree or an arts degree for that matter, there's like, what am I supposed to do with this? So that's where I started. First, I got a labouring job when I first came back, because I got very sick. Actually, it's the reason I returned back to Australia, is because I got very, very sick. I was in hospital for a couple of months over in Indonesia, so I had to return for health reasons. And just like, what am I supposed to do? And I started a job as a landscape gardener. I was working as, digging holes, put trees in it, and then I picked up a squidgy and started window cleaning, and I did whatever I needed to do to make a living. And then I thought, well, I've always sort of wanted to get into property. So I started thinking, oh, look, I'll go back to uni, I'll do some town planning courses, and maybe I can get into property development of some kind. And that's what I eventually did. So I moved up to Queensland, I got married, and I worked for a property developer for a while, and then branched off on my own and started doing some property development too, building townhouses and units.
Damien, before we go to the next phase, education's my thing, right? So I'm always curious why people do certain type of study. Why did you do an arts degree? It seems very, don't take this the wrong way, weird choice for someone like yourself. So arts.
Yeah, well, I asked myself that many times too. It was what I was good. So I found I was very good at languages, particularly ancient languages. So it was something that was like a duck to water. It's like I started. I had no trouble with ancient Greek, with Latin, and so and I did try engineering, but I just wasn't wired that way. I realised, no, this is not for me. I'm better off sleeping in at 10 o'clock in the morning, going to one lecture a day rather than spending a full. So there was definitely those sorts of things going through my mind. But I was just happened to be very good at ancient languages. I enjoyed studying, so I was really doing something that I enjoyed first and foremost, and I wasn't looking so much at a career at the end of it. And maybe that was a mistake. In the end, it turned out very well for me because it opened me up to a lot of different possibilities and options because I wasn't pigeonholed into a certain career, into accounting or law or something like that.
Yep. Some of the principles that you've adopted in your new business, we'll talk about that in a little bit, seems to be a lot around education and training, right? And why did you do a formal degree? Why did you even go down that path, especially if you weren't wired that way? Why did you decide to do it? And how does that now sort of transform the way you think, especially when it comes to setting up your franchises and helping your franchisees out?
They're good questions. Look, I think learning skills and it is like the most important part of operating sort of any business or being good at anything. So you can't really, have a franchise system and not develop people. So people need to be developed. They need to understand the principles of how to operate a business. They need to understand about customer service, about lead generation, and franchising in particular is a good school for entrepreneurs. So and I recommend anyone who's looking at getting into entrepreneurship is to join a franchise. There's obviously a lot of things to look at before deciding which franchise is right for you, but a franchise will educate you on the whole spectrum of running a business. So a good franchise will teach you about sales and marketing. Good franchise will teach you about customer service. It will teach you about operations. It will teach you about systems, about people, and about upskilling your people and developing market channels. So they're all things that definitely a franchise can do for you, and a franchise should be offering that, and that's something that we try to do in our business too.
Essentially, with a franchise, you're skipping that first 3-year startup phase, right? Because you're joining a company that already has systems and structure and processes in place, and then that whole learning that you're talking about allows you to skip that, let's call it the startup phase of it, of when you start your own business, skip that pain, let's call it, and jump straight into a business that has that structure in place.
Yeah, we've been very optimistic about 3 years because it certainly took me a lot longer than 3 years. Look, I think you're right. A franchise will let you leapfrog a few steps in front. Now, some people, even with decades and decades of experience in business, will still buy a franchise. I mean, Coca-Cola is a franchise. In Australia, it's a franchise. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So even though they're listed on the stock market, Coca-Cola Amatil is a franchise. So just because it's a franchise doesn't mean you are an unsophisticated operator owning it, because you get obviously brand power, you get all those systems, you get, but it just allows you to accelerate your growth that much more, and you can leverage, decades of experience and know-how and resources that you typically can't do if you're starting from nothing. So even though a lot of people look down on franchising, so well, why would I buy a franchise and start my own business? It's not all franchises are the same.
What I love about the franchise network is that, like when you do start your own business, you feel like you're on your own. Then you've got to build up your own network around you to get that other expertise to help you, guide you through that first 3 years, 5 years, 10 years startup process. Joining a franchise group, you already have that network. And all the other business, semi-business owners, but business owners in their own right, and the franchise network, all helping each other out.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
Before we go into that, right? Like for the average person, they don't really understand what franchising is, right? Like we go to McDonald's, we go to Hungry Jack's, or you go to, any of these franchised stores. What is franchising, first of all, and how does it work? And what's a franchisor? And who's a franchisee for the layman's person who have no idea how these things work?
Okay. So franchise. I'm going to sound like a lecturer or something.
Go ahead.
So a franchise is business format franchising. It is essentially, you've got a business system. You've got a method of going to market, of acquiring customers and doing business, and then you've got a brand and you've got the support behind you. So a franchisor will own the intellectual property, provide the intellectual property use to a franchisee, so they can obviously leverage the brand, the logos, but intellectual property obviously goes beyond just a logo and a trademark. It goes into know-how, business systems, processes, and then the franchisor will provide then training and support so you can actually implement that business. And Lucas, your point earlier is true, that one of the advantages of becoming a franchisee is you've got that network immediately. So we encourage our franchisees to speak to the other franchisees, because there's so much knowledge and that from the network, they don't need to get it all from the franchisor. So, people on the ground are going to be learning things that sometimes we can't know because we're not at the coalface or every day like they are.
Let's circle back for a minute. So before you got into franchising, you physically started up your cleaning business. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
So no one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to start a cleaning business. Well, I've not met them. People kind of stumble across cleaning and commercial cleaning, and that's what happened to me. So I was doing property development, as I said before, and I had got a little bit overambitious. I was young, got into probably too much debt, and chewed off too many projects. And one of the business partners I had was a builder. They ended up going into liquidation, and that took me with them. And this wasn't, you've got a background in property development and building, so you know that these things don't happen overnight. You can kind of see where everything is headed, and I could see where it was all headed. And I had about, a year or two runway, and I could see this slow train wreck happening in front of me. And I thought, I've got to look at other options. I had a young family, and I did start like I said to you before, I was doing all sorts of things. I was picking up a squidgy and doing some window cleaning. And when I first moved to Queensland, I thought, look, I'll just put some notices out on the supermarket and see if I can get some jobs. I did some handyman work, and then I did some cleaning, and then I ended up having a cleaning round, and then I sold the cleaning round. And when I did that cleaning round, I picked up a couple offices. And I thought, this is so easy. It's just
Damien, what's a cleaning round?
Oh, it's like a lawn mowing round. So, you've got so many houses. So I just put an ad up, and people started calling me, and I said, well, yeah, I'll clean your house, once a week or once a fortnight.
Regular customers.
Yeah, regular customers, yeah.
Was this out of necessity because of you needed the cash because of the debt you're going through?
I know. Well,
This is beforehand.
This is before. This is me. I was moving to Queensland from Adelaide, and I just needed some money to come in, and so I thought, well, I'll do this. Again, this is a problem that arts students have, arts graduates,
too much right brain.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's why you did the arts degree.
Yeah. This is what happens when you have an arts degree, and I couldn't have just said, oh, I'm going to become an accountant, or I'm going to get this job or that. So I just said, oh, I'll start cleaning people's houses or doing handyman work, and that's what I did. I was putting blinds in people's, windows and
Airtasker before Airtasker existed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
You heard it first here.
The initial.
If you do an arts degree, guaranteed cleaning.
It's done well for me, so I'm not complaining. I realised that hey, commercial was something good, because I sold that business very quick. As soon as I got into property, and so I got rid of that. But then when all this was happening, I realised. That wasn't that bad a gig if I knew what I was doing, and I was doing it systematically, because my thinking was if I can get some cleaning contracts, I can find some cleaners, some subcontractors, and then I'll make a margin out of it. And the great thing about commercial cleaning is that it's contractual, it's regular, so you're cleaning an office, a business every single day or once a week. And I thought, look, if I can get that, I can at least start subsidising my income. And that's one of the things, particularly about property development, which is what I was doing, is I didn't have a lot of didn't have any holding real estate, so I wasn't like tenanting out buildings or doing things like that. So there was no rental income coming in. So what I was working from project to project. So basically, I'd get the funds, put a deposit in, get the loan, start building. I had to do a lot of off-the-plan sales, which I did, and then I'd sell down, and then you've got a lot of transaction costs, you've got GST fees and stuff like that, and then sometimes I made money, and sometimes I didn't, and then I really didn't at the end. So that's what got me into cleaning, and so when it
got you into cleaning again for the second time.
For the second time in a more serious way. Yeah.
Right. Talk us through the growth process. So you kicked it off, and then you scaled pretty quickly?
No. So that's the thing. So when I kicked it off, it was still part-time for me. So I was just doing this on the side.
Yeah, full-time developer and part-time cleaner.
Essentially, yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I wasn't cleaning to begin with, so I contracted it out fairly quickly. It wasn't something that I was interested in doing, but then when the proverbial really hit the fan, I had no money. I was basically started, there's nothing more demoralizing than going to the bank to give them money to actually settle a property. So that's where I ended up being, where basically all of my last remaining funds was just to make a sale so I could get out of the situation I was in. And so I was left with nothing. I had to start all over again. And I had this little...
How old were you then?
I was 30, 35, 30, 32, 33, yeah.
Yep. Starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Did you start at zero, or did you start at like minus 100, minus a million?
It was minus a lot.
Yeah, minus a lot.
There's varying degrees, right? Like if you ask Donald Trump, he started at the bottom with 5 million, so that's...
not quite that much.
So you're ground zero, your early 30s, you've got that cleaning business that's underway. So how did you grow and how did you scale?
So what I was doing is I was... to make it, because it wasn't quite enough for me to make ends meet. So during the day, I was knocking on doors, setting appointments for a roof restoration company, and trying to get this cleaning business going.
Doing door-to-door sales.
Door-to-door, well, I was doing not quite door-to-door sales, as door-to-door set appointments. And then I ended up doing the sales part of it as well. So I ended up selling, people repainting their roofs and doing that sort of stuff.
So that was your marketing strategy?
It ended up being my marketing strategy. It wasn't initially. So I was actually doing a lot of sort of inbound marketing, and I wasn't getting a lot of traction with that. And then someone suggested to me, it's like, well, you're doing this during the day. Why don't you do that for offices? And it's like, oh my gosh, probably a good idea. So that's what I started doing, and it actually didn't work as well as I thought it was going to work. It did end up once we refined it a few years later, it became phenomenal. So the success rate doing it that method. But it did give me a bit of early traction, and I had a few successes. I got some referrals, and I started building a business. And one of the moments that was sort of groundbreaking for me, to be honest, was when I actually started from zero again, because I had subcontractors doing these cleans for me. And I actually had to ring them all up and say, look, I'm actually going to do the cleaning now. So, I won't need you anymore. And one thing I found was like, wow, there's a lot of money in this. I didn't think there was that much money. I was paying them too much. And so that was an eye-opener for me. I thought, well, if you know what you're doing, there's actually plenty of margin in commercial cleaning. There's a lot of efficiencies that you can find. There's a lot of ways to upsell clients, and there's a lot of stickiness if you know what you're doing.
What's an upsell? How do you upsell cleaning?
Yeah, good question. So upsell cleaning is like, well,
would you like fries with that?
Essentially, yeah. So well, we're cleaning. So, well, how about your toilet paper, your paper towels? You're doing that. So that's another one. And it's like, oh, how about mats? Before you know it, you're putting coffee machines in people's places. You're doing organising their pest control. You're doing their landscaping. So you can easily double or triple a client, and especially if you're targeting the right market. There's a lot of flexibility with their budget. They just want the problem solved, and they're happy to say, look, if you can deal with it,
you're already there.
You're already there. You got keys and alarm codes, and that comes with a lot of trust.
I guess the difference between cleaning and a business is how you create that, right? It sounds like convenience. So you're practically selling convenience to these businesses.
Yeah, that's right. So we're solving problems for people. So that's and the cleaning I often call the original subscription business. So people will sign contracts. People will often stay with you indefinitely for years and years and years. So this is a very it's a very solid and predictable. It's not like property development at all.
So you're first into a company to win them as a client is cleaning. Then you have all these offshoot products and services that you offer, that you add on top, but you don't promote those offshoot services to get clients. You only sell the cleaning part as the initial in.
Sometimes we do. It might be an offer, like we'll offer like coffee like for a month, as an office. But what we found is that there's 6 things that customers are looking for, and this was sort of a few of the breakthroughs when we were growing the business. We realised that probably the best way to find out, to design our service was just go to the market and ask them what mattered to them. And that's what I did. I just ended up going to what I call my A-grade customers, and I interviewed them and I said, if you had a perfect cleaning service, what would it look like to you? And then I compared all the answers, and I found out there was some commonalities. In fact, there were 6 things that they were all kind of saying. And the interesting thing was price was not on that list. So I expected that price or budget, best, value for money service, and no one ever said that to me.
What were some of those top things on the list?
Transparency, communication, security. So, and also specific items. So one of the things you find about, again, the topic of this podcast is mastering things, is that you think cleaning is just cleaning, right? So it's just like vacuuming floors and bin liners. But what we soon discovered was every office manager or business owner had certain pet peeves. There's things that really, really bugged them. So if you didn't address them, if you didn't know what they were, then, they weren't going to come across. They wanted you to demonstrate that you were going to be able to address this in every single clean. And so I went to work and started developing systems and processes. We built an app, we created new auditing systems and new training programs based around these.
Was that before you started the franchise, or this is in your business?
No, this was before we started the franchise. So this was me. So I started getting a bit of traction. I started winning. And one thing I noticed is that then my hourly rates just shot through the roof. So I started experimenting. So just so someone who doesn't understand commercial cleaning is probably a good idea. So when you do commercial cleaning, so you give them a quote, normally a quote for a monthly clean office, and then you've got what's called scope and frequency. So there's things that need to be done, and then you've got a fixed price normally of what that needs to be cleaned for. So and the way that you then charge is you don't normally say, oh, look, I work on, $30 or $50 or $100 an hour. You basically say, this will be your fixed price per month. And then to calculate that price, so you do what you call, you work out your production rates and the hourly rates that you want to work on. So when I initially started, and this was like 13 plus years ago, I was like $35 an hour, which back then was pretty good. But I started experimenting. So, well, what if I did 45? What if I do 55? What if I do 65? And and I went right up to 150, and I was still winning work. And I was like, this is crazy. This is cleaning. Like, what's going on?
But you weren't doing cleaning. You were offering cleaning as a service, but you were offering convenience of everything else. Yeah. Which is a different value add, right? I absolutely love that.
It's results focused at the end of the day. So they had tasks that needed to be met, and you were meeting those.
Yeah, that's right. And they look, and if you think about it logically, it makes sense. So if you're like a legal firm, you've got 20 desks there, and someone, you're paying like, say, $2,000 a month for a cleaning service that's constantly causing you dramas. You might have lost a client because someone came in and there's like a dead cockroach sitting at the boardroom table. They just don't want to deal with that, or unlock doors and all that sort of stuff. So if you come in and you say, well, I'll do it for $3,000, but you never think about any of those things. And not only that, I can actually show you the systems, the tools and the processes and the guarantees, so that won't happen to you. They're like, well, I'll pay. What's that to them? I mean, it means a lot to us in terms of the margins and the profitability of our business, but it doesn't mean anything to them, an extra $1,000 of cleaning. So that's like an example that you would use. Again, it's different in different market segments. So once you get to the big end of town, we're talking about airports and shopping centres and stuff like that, there's a lot more price pressure. So you've got to be you've got to sharpen your pencil, as it were, because there's a lot of competition. There's quite a few good operators in that level, and it's a volume and low margins with that sort of stuff. But where we sit in the mid-market, there is a lot of price flexibility because people are looking first and foremost for outcomes.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like, if I use this as a perfect example, as a business owner, we've moved office, I can tell you, 15 times in 10 years.
Didn't you just move again last week?
We just moved again. And cleaning is one of those things that no one wants to do. But you want a really good job done. And we literally moved out of our previous office only a few months ago. One of the main reasons was we wanted our desk clean. And I went to we're in a co-working space, went to the reception and said, can we get our desk clean? They said, no, it's not a part of the contract. You have to clean your own desk. Oh. I'm like, but there's dust and there's dirt and the cleaners are not allowed to touch your desk. I was like that's counterintuitive of what we as business owners want for our staff.
Yeah.
So how does your process work, Damien? Do you go and try to understand what the problems are in a business, or do you just tick a box of what they ask from you?
So, look, we'll start going to the weeds now. I'm not sure how interested people are in actually learning our quoting processes and stuff like that. But there's a fairly formulaic process we go through in terms of acquiring what we call, the information from a client, so we know we can put a proposal together, and then from that we also then have a look at, say, what we call the big three, which is important, which would be those desks, inclusions and exclusions, and then we put that into a pricing calculator, and then we put it into a proposal. And we can do that about a minute, 2 minutes. The whole process, but it's just about uncovering those needs and questions, and sometimes larger proposals. There's a bit more in depth, sort of data, gathering and asking questions than there is with, like, say, smaller offices.
What about challenges? I'd imagine that you've got a lot of staff. Would be one, but what would be your biggest challenges that you faced as you went through that growth phase focus prior to starting franchising?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the challenges was the way I was marketing, and I think you asked before, like I think Lucas, you said before, going door to door, you're doing it. Well, I tried it and I wasn't very good at it. All right, so I did get a bit of business and got me going.
Who loves door to door sales?
No one, yeah. So unless you know what you're doing, so what I did is I started sort of focusing on, AdWords and focusing on SEO and doing that sort of stuff. And the problem with that form of marketing is that for at least a service-based business, like that's on site, is that the jobs were coming from all different places. And so that became a real challenge for my business.
You mean geographically?
Yeah, that's right, geographically. So I ended up having not clusters of work. I had like a site here, a site there, and then so I spent a lot of time.
Business, you kept saying yes and yes and yes.
That's right, exactly right. And so and then it got to a point where it's like, half of my salary is just spent on travel time, it feels like, because I'm sending cleaning crews out and paying. And I remember that this was a pivotal point and this is actually how I got into franchising, because I never intended to franchise the business, is because I started in Brisbane, we're national now, but I had a bunch of work around Kapalaba, but most of my business was around the Brisbane city fringe, and so that's like an hour away. And I remember I had a bunch of sites down there, and I thought, well, I'll just put them up for sale, and I'll sell the contracts. So that's what I did. I just put an ad up on Gumtree, and my phone didn't stop ringing. I wasn't giving away these cleaning contracts. Like, I was asking reasonable dollars for them. I thought, there's all these people interested in buying these. What's going on? But then when I spoke to them, they'll ask me these really basic questions. I say, what gear do I need? And it's like, well, I'm not here to train you. I'm just here to sell some contracts. Why are you asking me these questions? And they're like, can you get me more? It's like, no, I'm just selling these contracts. And that's when the penny dropped for me. I said, wait a moment, here's an opportunity. There's obviously what I've got is a valuable commodity. And then that's where my thinking started changing about what I had is, in fact, cleaning contracts were assets. So they were no different from houses and cars. And that's where sort of my property background came into. And I thought, I'm selling houses, but they're just happening bits of papers. And so, and that's the same. The value of commercial property is actually the value of the lease.
Yep.
So really, when you look at the asset, is a bunch of signed leases. And I was thinking, well, I've got the same thing here. And that's where I started thinking, wait a moment, if I franchise, and this was the only time I started seriously looking at franchising, is that I could actually draw people in by saying, I'll get you some cleaning contracts and you know how to do that. And then I'll support you with your setup, and then I'll support you running the business, and then I'll be able to get, a portion of ongoing fees. They'd be happy as well. And some of and I ended up not selling those cleaning contracts, partly for that reason, but the other reason as well is I'd created a fairly unique system of transparency with clients, our communication books, the app that I developed, and I just realised that I couldn't give any of that stuff to the new buyers of these contracts. And that's the reason why these clients were willing to pay me this extra amount of money, is that these systems I had developed was the reason they wanted to stay with me. And I thought, I'm in a bit of a bind here. And that got me on the franchising journey.
From a timeline perspective, 13 years ago you started cleaning yourself.
Yep.
And doing everything yourself and then contracting out. At what point was that Gumtree ad went up and you had that light bulb moment?
Yeah, and how important is timing too?
Oh, it was about 18 months, 2 years into doing it. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so pretty early on.
Yeah.
Before we go into urban clean, like that is the big differentiator between entrepreneurial mindset and people just starting a small business, right? How much did the transferable skills play a pivotal role in this whole process, right? From your arts degree, I don't know how much that one got you to the. I keep going back to it because I'm still stumped. But then you've got your property development business. It seems like there's a lot of transferable skills. And the reason I asked the question before, it's like sales and marketing seems to be a huge part of what you do and what you need to do in a cleaning business.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I first did when I was working for a property developer, I was sourcing sites. And so rather than going through real estate agents, we would target geographic areas and say we want to put aged care facilities, say, in an area. Rather than, going through a real estate agent, I'd just go directly to the market and approach people and say, are you looking to sell? And you would think that would be easy, and it is relatively easy, but you can't take for granted that interaction. And so in order to actually engage people, I was putting like bottles of wine, sending them bottles of wine, and sending them handwritten notes and things like that, just to start a conversation to see if they were interested in selling sometime in the future. And so these sorts of things, as you say, they are transferable skills. You start looking at things, you realise you can't take everything for granted. Like you actually need to lubricate interactions, and essentially that's what marketing and sales is drawing people's attention. Hey, I've got something, or we could do something. How do we start this conversation, and is it something that you want to do? Even knocking on doors was something that sort of got me thinking as well, and looking at, probably if I hadn't had that experience with property, it wouldn't have occurred to me that a cleaning contract was an asset. I wouldn't have thought about that at all.
Sounds a bit relationship focused as well.
Oh,
did you have? Yeah.
Oh, all businesses are all about relationships.
It has to be, yeah.
Definitely a sales driven process that you had developed without realizing you had developed it.
Yeah. Well, our breakthrough happened when we started recruiting a lot of franchisees. So one of the things I recommend people do, but it's a very scary thing to do, is to give guarantees that you're scared to give. And that's what I did. So I gave money back guarantees to my franchises to begin with, and I had a very short timeline. So because I wasn't a brand, no one knew who we were. We were definitely the new kids on block with cleaning franchise. And so I would say, look, we'll get you $5,000 of cleaning contracts within 3 months, or I'll give all of your money back. Oh boy, did that put a lot of pressure on me.
That's a bold statement.
I did have to give a few back then. And that's what really, that put so much pressure on us. We needed to perform. And so one of the things I discovered was doing telemarketing. Telemarketing does work with commercial cleaning, and so I was doing a lot of that to get set appointments on top of our online activities. But one of the things we thought was, let's revisit this door knocking thing, because we weren't doing it very well. We'd knock on like maybe 40 doors and get one person say yes, and they probably just felt sorry for us, or they just sacked their cleaner, and so they said, yeah, you came perfect timing. So I thought, wait a moment, it's free, right? So giving a proposal is free. It doesn't cost anything. So it shouldn't be that hard to give something away for free. So why is it so hard to do this? And so we did a couple experiments, and we trialed a few things, and we ended up rejigging a script and a process where we could actually get about 7 or 8 people to say yes to a proposal at the door. So out of 10. So
wow.
Yes. So we would go down a street, and then suddenly it became, instead of, there'd be maybe 40 officers there, and past time it would just be one proposal.
This is not even closing the deal. This is
just getting a proposal. Well, you got to do a proposal before you can close the deal.
Yeah. So that's
It's an offer to do business with a price. So you need a scope. You need hey, this is what we do, and this is the price, and here's a signature. So I'd send them a proposal with something they could sign, so I could do business with them. And so we changed that from 40. We'd have 40 doors. In the past, we'd only get one proposal, and that's a proposal, not a closed deal.
Yeah.
And then we turned that into like 35 proposals out of the 3, and then we just had to work on our conversion rates, and that ended up being about 1 in 12.
So your whole focus was still in that office sector. You didn't ever morph into the residential sector.
Everyone wanted us to do that at the time. No, they're two different animals. So residential cleaning and commercial cleaning are two different things altogether. Yeah. So,
yep.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate that? How do you say no? Like volume-wise, you would have had more business doing residential cleaning, right? How do you differentiate and make that call? And that's a very important part. Lots of people would say yes to everything to make money, especially when you're going down that path of that first phase.
Yeah, look, it wasn't that hard for me, to be honest. So when you look at it for a residential cleaning business, okay, if you're doing $1 million a year in revenue, that's a big residential cleaning business. If you're doing $1 million in revenue on commercial cleaning businesses, who are you? You're nothing. It's a tiny speck of a business. So in terms of market size, commercial cleaning is the much bigger market. Like in Australia, it's like about, I think the current estimate is about $8 or $9 billion a year gets spent on commercial cleaning. So it's a way bigger market, and also the contract sizes are bigger. So cleaning a house, like a big house, you're looking, I don't know, maybe someone would spend a weekly or twice weekly clean kind of thing, and you might be looking at a few $100s a week, whereas cleaning contracts, we've got ones that are like $1 million a year, just one contract, so
I think that's the key point here is you keep using the word contract. In the residential space, they don't have contracts.
No.
They're hiring a person to do a service. You're talking about you've mentioned it so many times. Contract. So I think that's the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a discretionary spend. It's like when partners they're both busy, they need a cleaner or something like that, but one of them is staying at home and so don't worry about the cleaning service. So it's just not nice to have. It's a luxury item people have, not a necessity. Whereas for a business, they need to get cleaners. Yeah, so I mean, how many at the end of the day at a doctor's surgery or like a medical centre, you don't expect the doctors to go and start cleaning toilets at the end, and they're not going to do it.
So run us through the principles behind the master franchising model. Like I know you've written a book on it.
What is master franchising, first of all? What does that mean?
So master franchising is essentially you're working as a sub-franchisor of the master franchisor, as it were. So, and what it is with our sometimes some franchise models are very flat franchise models where you would have, let's say, one franchisor and they train people and they set up locations and then everyone does their own thing. There's just basically one level, I guess, of the franchise. And you can still master franchise under that model. I mean, Subway for many years had a master franchise model where to go into, sometimes they call it an area developer, where you'd sell a territory and then they had the responsibility to open up so many stores, etc. And so it would be that would be a master franchisee. So basically you get to use all the systems and tools in the brand, and then you're basically setting up franchisees under you using that model. For us, it was a little bit different because it's very much location specific. Like our master franchisees, we call them regionals in our business. They're recruiting a sales team. They're going out winning cleaning contracts, and they're supporting their franchisees with training and support. So it's location specific. And so basically that model that we had developed in Brisbane, we said, well, working for us will work for other people as well. And so we basically opened up that model of franchising where you'd have a team, you win cleaning contracts, you set up franchisees, and we have franchisees as well who win their own cleaning contracts as well. But as part of the offer is that we set them up with a lot of business, and we can work as their outsourced sales team as well, acquiring new cleaning contracts or accounts for them.
One of the main purposes for doing that is that because they understand their region better than you understand the region. So setting up, like, say, out of Brisbane, you kind of know the culture, right? But going down to a different city or suburb in some area you haven't been to before, it's a totally different demographic, different culture. Does that master's franchise help so they understand that local region so they can do the better sales and marketing and build up their own franchisees in that situation, or it doesn't matter either way?
I think the key is a sense is really ownership. So when you own something, you care about it deeply. You want to make sure that it's, you guys probably also are landlords, so like you can, and I used to know this when I knocked on doors for a roof restoration. I would walk past buildings, houses where the lawn was unkempt and, no one was doing the weeding because it's like, oh, that's a renter, So, and then the house was the lawn was well manicured and everything's like, okay, they own their place, right? So that's kind of what you get with franchising. That's one of the biggest benefits, in fact, that you get from franchising as opposed to a corporate model, is that you have people who are truly invested in the sense that they own this business, they care about the business, and so their level of customer service, their level of results are going to be dramatically different compared to someone who doesn't have that sense of ownership. And then there's just that idea of scale too. So for us, it's really about setting up and training someone in how to use our systems or operations. We can open up in New Zealand, or we can open up in the US, the UK, just by basically saying, hey, this is all of our systems. These are all our tools. This is how to recruit a franchise. This is how to win clean contracts. This is how to support a franchisee to grow and to develop their business. This is all the brand collateral. Come over, we'll train you, we'll get you set up, bang, they're off to the race. And if you get a good operator with that arsenal of tools, that's where amazing things happen, you know. So, and a good operator that has an ownership stake and, you know, live and breathe the brand. And it's very hard to get that from employees.
And obviously, you know, franchising, you've got to have the brand, you've got to have the recognition, you've got to have the tools, right? So start with, how did you come up with Urban Clean, the brand, and what role did technology and the tools play for you in building this franchise and then scaling it?
They're good questions. So technology and tools, I have a very utilitarian approach to all of that. So I just see them as what they are. They're just tools. So I think first of all comes from, what do customers want? What do franchisees want? How do I make it easier for them to get what they want? And if there are tools or there technology that I can use to make that happen, I'll use it. If I putting technology in that complicates things and just gives it like a really shiny veneer, then I'll eradicate it. And so we were one of the first cleaning companies, I think, in Australia, maybe the world, probably not the world, but I know in Australia, to have an app that was giving real-time notifications of when cleaners arrived, when they left, what they did, photos and all that sort of stuff. So, but I made it very, very simple. And even today, it's a very simple tool, because clients didn't care about bells and whistles. They weren't interested in that. They just needed basic things answered every time the cleaners came in. And so I think if the technology is actually meeting that demand, then, you know, it does amazing things. Now, obviously, you've got geniuses like Steve Jobs and stuff like that who create technology that then everybody decides that they need afterwards. But I think for people like myself, that's probably a bit beyond me to think of it that way. I'd rather start with what are people's current needs and how do I address them, and if there's technology and tools available, I'll definitely use them.
What about your book, Clean Up with Franchising? What was the inspiration behind writing that?
Oh, I just didn't want to repeat myself all the time. Look, the Clean Up with Franchising, I was communicating a lot of the same things to a lot of prospective franchisees. So, you know, how I got started, you know, what got the brand going, and, you know, why commercial cleaning is different, how franchising works, and why you would want to get into franchising and how does it relate to commercial cleaning. And so I set out with that book to really answer all those questions and to use it as a tool. So, you know, we give them out to, you know, franchisees who are, you know, looking at the business. I'll give them a copy. Obviously, people buy it as well because they're interested in having a look at, you know, a different perspective around franchising and master franchising in particular. But yeah, I thought, why don't I put this all down in paper and actually, you know, communicate the story and what we've done and, you know, why you would want to get into franchising and commercial cleaning franchising at that.
How many franchisees do you have?
Over 150, yeah.
150, yeah. And you got plans to go scale internationally?
Yes. So we're over in the UK in April doing an expo. We've definitely got the markets open at the moment. So we've got in New Zealand, we're looking for a master franchise in New Zealand. We're looking for regionals and masters in the UK. And we have plans at the end of the year to go into the US. You know, we're always in discussions with people who are looking at, you know, maybe opening up an urban clean somewhere else in the world, but it's just a matter of time.
What about AI? Might be a question for Lucas. What impact has AI had on your business and on franchising?
Not much. Like, to be honest, like, in terms of the guys in the office, obviously ChatGPT is a bit of a tool. We are looking at implementing AI into our learning platform because we've got huge, you know, it's like literally thousands of pages of resources that we've developed over the years in terms of operating a commercial cleaning business and the aspects. And so one of the challenges behind that is, like you would say, how do you mine through certain information and get questions quickly answered? And so that's something that we are, I know right now, looking at implementing AI into to make some of those things a little bit easier for our franchisees to say, have a question, and then rather than from the whole internet, is actually from our system. So, oh, well, this is, you know, what happens if that happens, and that's, you know.
You don't have the little robot vacuum cleaners that run around?
No, but that is some of the bigger clients do look for those sorts of things. So yeah, we're not in airports and maybe big schools and stuff like that. They are introducing that sort of stuff in, and AI definitely is going to be introduced, if not it's already actively being introduced in the commercial cleaning market, particularly around scoping, and also what's one of the things is this is one of the challenges, especially with very large sites, is that you've got a lot of building, but not a lot of that building is used all the time. So, but when you do a tender or a quote, you have to assume that the whole building is used the same way. And so this is something that definitely I can see, AI being definitely beneficial for procurement managers to actually massage scopes and frequencies of large tenders, where they can say, oh, well, look, that room is only used once a week, so why do we need to have someone come into those rooms like 5 days a week? And so definitely there's efficiencies that can happen from that.
Can you see any efficiencies, Lucas?
One of the things about AI, it's such a buzzword, right? Yeah. And so there was a bit of a hesitation around how do you answer that question, because like, where do we start? And one thing that you've got right that you probably not even aware of yet is data. You've been using this application that you most likely built internally, sounds like 10 years ago. Yeah. You've got both cleaners and franchisers out on the road asking questions, collecting information, and this is all being stored within your data set. And that's where AI is powerful. It's all about how do we take that data you've already got and have some meaningful outcome with that data. So for some examples is like, if you've already got that data set coming in and you go, well, I want to do this tender. Well, actually, we can go back and look at all the previous tenders we've done. We can do a matchmaking criteria and go, well, this tender that we just received in, because let's say it's a Word document or an email, however you're receiving the tender, we put it into that system. It will go back and look through all your previous tenders, the ones that we won, the ones that we lost, the ones that we like to work with, like you put a bit of a criteria around it, and then it will automatically pre-populate that tender ready to go out based on what you've already done previously, because you've already got the data. Most people love that idea, but they don't have the data. You're sitting on a gold mine. You don't even realize. And so that's like one example from a tendering point of view. But think about a customer matching point of view. If you've got, no doubt today, you've got an ideal customer, when you're going out and doing your sales process, your door knocking, if you're still doing it, whatever that sales process looks like, we can easily match using the AI data set that you've already got, who is our ideal customer and who is not our ideal customer. That's very important, the not part. Yeah. And so then that quoting process becomes very streamlined. And so it sounds like you're already winning 35 out of 40 anyway. But
no, we're not winning that many. We're getting that many proposals. I didn't say we're closing all of that.
So this is a qualification conversation, right? So rather than doing 35 out of 40 proposals now, we might only have to do 10 out of 40 because we're going to have we'll win 9 of those because we're we're narrowing down that focus.
That also gives you efficiencies of scale, right? Like if you're looking at launching into a new market, rather than even if you're a multi-site owner, someone who owns a few sites and looking at going into franchising, would that make that process easier? In the old days, you would have had to hire a consultancy firm and spend thousands of dollars, whether you want to go from a multi-site to a franchise or go from a one geographical franchise model to a multi-geographical franchise model. Does that make that easier? Does that disrupt the market?
Absolutely, it could be a disruptor. I'm not sure if it's being done in your industry. It's not being done in many industries, so I doubt it's being done in your industry yet. It means you can scale faster. And if your business is ready for scale and you got the data, then you can definitely adapt. Like for your exact point there, Don, is take your learnings from the last 13 years, build a model. We call it an AI model in this case. Build a model that then replicates what we've already done in different regions. And say we want to go set up in Perth. I'm not sure if you're in Perth or Northern Territory. Probably all over Australia, wherever we're not, we take our learnings. New Zealand. Let's talk about New Zealand, right? Different culture, different ways of working. We can take the data set of what we've already learned. We take a data set that already exists in New Zealand because we can get access through open large language models. Do a comparison, tweak our data set to match the New Zealand culture, and then when you're launching in with a master franchise that you bring on board, then you can do a sales and marketing campaign throughout New Zealand. It's very, very targeted of who our ideal customer is.
Wow. Where's Australia at in the franchising spectrum globally?
Australia is a very franchised economy. There's no question about it. So there's, I think, 1,300 franchises in Australia. The US, I think, has close to 3,000, and yet it's 14 times the size of the Australian market. So when you look at Australia in terms of per population sort of level, like we're very franchised, and franchise is a normal way of operating. And believe it or not, even though it seems like Australia has such an anti-franchise vibe about it, a lot of people, especially because we've had a couple rogue operators over the last decade, we tend to like to buy franchises and operate franchises.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, right? Like it's a really good model, but it's very legislated and regulated. So what's the best way to do it? When do you work out, you go from a multi-site business owner, it's a really good idea to franchise. Like what's the advice that you would give to a young entrepreneur, to go into franchising, and what are the pitfalls? There's a few in your book, but I'd love to hear from you what those pitfalls are. And before I do that, I'm going to tap out, right? We've got one of our panelists in our mastering panel who's right now looking at franchising. So we've got good old Ryan here, and Matt, you can advise him, you can tell him, because he's looking at this very thing at this right moment. So now you come in. I'll tap out.
Welcome.
Yeah, likewise. That was a mistake. Now we're in trouble.
Now the fun starts.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, awesome just hearing the background of franchising, looking at it myself from a local business that's grown very, very rapidly, specifically in the NDIS space, which everyone knows about now. It's like the most talked about thing in Australia, and I think 1/3 of the Australian population is actually working in it. So from my perspective, growing my NDIS company to the point where I want to take it nationally, but how do I do that from a franchise perspective? Like what are the ways of doing this? I talk to different people all the time, and there's different ways. Some person saying payroll, some person saying licensing this. Everyone needs to be employees. So looking at it, what are the things I need to consider first and foremost that work for me as a someone that wants to be a master franchise? Am I using that?
Master franchisor. Yeah, there's lots of different terminology.
I like that terminology. I'm gonna keep that one. Master franchise.
You just want to be a master.
I do. That's exactly what I want. But yeah, no. So like, what are the first things I need to consider, especially in my space where it is highly, highly regulated and legislated? Like it's very nerve-wracking for me to hand the keys to the kingdom over to someone where I'm like, hey, do the right thing by people.
So you're trying to find a model to be able to franchise your NDIS or franchise the NDIS. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, well, I'm currently building out like our systems. Like that's one thing that I've noticed with a lot of businesses in the NDIS is there's not a huge systematic approach from start to finish, from acquisitions to operations to training, all these little parts of it. And that's what we've essentially started doing, is laying the foundation of going, all right, well, let's streamline our system so I can say, hey, Magnus, do you want an NDIS
So you can
company?
sell a process.
Exactly. So,
but you've already answered your own question, but let's hear it.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Well, first of all, I'll say I don't have a lot of experience with NDIS, so I don't know about it. I don't know a lot of specific industry information about what you do, but this would be more sort of general advice, and that is that I always say, if someone's looking at only opening sort of 10 locations, then don't franchise. All right, so franchising is really for someone who wants to do 100 plus, and the reason I say that is you won't make money with just a number of franchises. It's actually that's probably the biggest mistake I see. A lot of people who enter franchising think, I get into franchising. Franchising is like passive income and become rich. There's nothing further from the truth.
Sounds like building an app.
Yeah, it ain't that way. So it is definitely not a quick pathway to riches. And in fact, and this was, I guess, not embarrassing, but it was just the fact of the matter. It was humbling. It's like when I was making money before I franchised, and then I franchised and I stopped making money. And so I was like, my franchisees were making more money than I was at that time. So it really, there's a lot of things you don't know that can't be told to you until you start doing it. And that's what I remember. Someone gave me a piece of advice that definitely became true just before I started franchising. And that was, just remember, you're not in the cleaning industry anymore. And I'm like, what? I'm in the franchising business, and it is. And you are in a different industry.
Said.
Yeah. So you will stop being an NDIS provider and become a franchisor, and that is a completely different business.
Right. I think that's actually really good advice. That's one thing. Sitting here as the business grows, and I'm sure everyone's experienced this. The more the business grows, the more you're operating the business, more of sales, more, getting those data sets, leading the business as much as doing the thing that you're originally doing. So, I think
either on the tools doing what you love doing as a trade, or you're running a company, or in this case, you're neither of those. You're now running a franchise business, which is a business, but it's a franchise business, which is different to the one in the industry.
Yeah, well, that's answered my question. That's given me a lot.
I'll double click and ask one more though.
Yeah.
Have you seen that line, and when was that line crossed, when you went from making great money, now losing money, not making great money anymore because you're now a franchise, or 20 franchises, 50 franchises, 100 franchises? When was that tipping point did you find? Because it is a good point for a younger generation to go, well, your first target should be 20. Your first target should be 50 before you can go over that, crossing that.
I couldn't say an exact number because it just depends on your fee model. And I guess that's something that I would also emphasize, is that franchising is really only viable if there's heaps of margin. And what I mean is that you've got to be able to, a franchisee has got to be able to make a bucket load of money. And if your franchisees can make money, then you've got a viable franchise system. A lot of people sort of look into, especially when you first, and it's good advice, and that is like, you've got to have your systems, you've got to have your processes, you've got to have this franchise community, you've got to have your conferences, etc. And yeah, all those things are true, but none of it matters if your franchisees can't make money. So it's really and it will get messy, because that's the thing, is in the first few years for us were messy. We made a lot of mistakes. We recruited people we shouldn't have recruited. And so it's really being prepared to go through that process. And it is a learning process. I feel like it's worthwhile. Like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was worthwhile. It was worthwhile, but I won't say that it was easy. It was like very hard. It wasn't until about 5 years into the business we started making real money. So you see those franchise fees come in, and they seem substantial. I mean, we do sales in millions now. Like, for like someone wants to buy a master franchise territory, they're not not cheap anymore. They were once, but those first few years, you're basically investing all of that money back into the business. So that's all we were doing. So we'd get a franchise fee, and you think, oh wow, someone just paid you $50,000 or whatever for a unit franchise, like in our business. But when we started, it's like, well, they all went very quick.
Who's done it the best? Who's been the world leader in franchising?
Oh, there without doubt, like McDonald's is like seen as the pinnacle of business for franchising, and I think they're still I think they've lost a little bit of the luster that they used to have. So it used to be a ticket to riches. You buy some McDonald's franchise, you'll be rich, but it's maybe not so much anymore. But having said that, in terms of their model of, in terms of the ingredients of a franchise model, they are often seen as the gold standard, and I'll treat them as a gold standard franchise.
Well, if you can get a 16-year-old manager to run a company,
that's right.
Then you've got something right.
It's pretty damn good, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think I have to tap out and take some notes now and start implementing some things, because the big thing for me was, and what really resonated, is moving away from my traditional business and becoming like a full franchising, becoming my business. That was a huge takeaway and a bit of an eye-opener, because for me, I know how to run an NDIS business. That's what I know how to run. But moving away from that and actually becoming a franchise business, now it's given me something to reconsider, because now it's a different kettle of fish. It's a different business model from what I've been operating, even if I have a business model over here. And I think, thank you so much for that information, and I'm going to be taking that into consideration moving forward before I do anything.
Thanks for dropping in, Ryan.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, fellas.
Asking the questions.
Thanks, mate. Yeah. So is it still a good time for people to get into a franchise? We know there's lots of financial pressures. The world's in a very bit of a flux at the moment, right? Like, and all the disruptions that are coming from even from technological disruptions. There's a lot of uncertainty. Is it still a good time to get into franchising?
Good question.
Well, my answer to that would be similar to if someone asked, is it a good time to get in business? Like, there's every time is a good time and every time is a bad time. So I think if you want to do it, you should do it. And you can make your own economy. I think that's something that you can often use, like, to stop you doing things, to say, oh, the economy is like this, or people are doing this, or gosh, the economy has always been disrupted. Since the Industrial Revolution, the economy has been getting disrupted.
That's true.
That's true. So it's one of those things, is that, yes, the world is changing, but look, there's no better time, I think, than
why would I join a franchise rather than, starting my own cleaning business? Or why would I instead of starting my own restaurant? Why would I go and talk to Ben and start a Knocky Brothers join a Knocky Brothers franchise?
Oh, well, I think that's just, franchising is leverage. So you are leveraging other people's experience, expertise, and brand to get faster and more profitable results. And that's really what your due diligence needs to be. When you're looking at different franchise opportunities, you've got to say, is this going to give me leverage? Is this going to make me profitable faster? How much know-how do I have here that it's going to take me years to find out on my own? And that's really the value of a franchise, and that's why some franchises are more valuable than others. So if you're looking at just entering into a franchise and it's got a small market and they don't have a lot of systems, a lot of experience, then obviously it doesn't mean it's a bad franchise. It's just not worth as much as, say, a McDonald's that has decades of experience, as a proven formula, and has a history of success and successful franchisees. So, but obviously the investment and the price point is going to be reflective of that. So, yeah, I think there's a great future for franchising, like there is in business.
So what you're saying is that when there's uncertainty, it's probably a better option, right? Because you've got a whole team behind you. You've got a network of people that are doing exactly the same thing as you're doing. And you've also got all these systems that are in place, probably have better bargaining agreements that you've done with suppliers as well. So it might. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said is right. Look, franchising doesn't work though if you want to do your own thing. So if you're like, look, I want my own brand, I want to find it out how to do things on my own, and I want to do it my own way. And do not look at a franchise. Okay, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to drive the franchise all crazy. You're going to just get everyone upset. So don't buy one. That's what you want.
Hold on. How much flexibility do I get? Like, can I change my colors from blue to red if I want to in Urban Clean's branding?
Well, not on ours. But that's
but
something.
Look,
that's something that you have to do when you're investigating opportunities and doing your due diligence. And that's one thing I would say about anyone who is looking at investing in a franchise, a master franchise, or whatever, is that you do have to have a set of rules that you're happy to live with and happy not to live with. So when you're buying the business, and that's part of your due diligence process, is saying, well, look, I want this type of flexibility. Will that franchise allow me to have that flexibility? And you just got to ask. Some will, some won't. So that's part of the due diligence, is finding out, because they're all different. And that's, I guess, I was very anti-franchise until I started franchising, and the turnaround for me was realizing that franchising was anything you wanted it to be, because that's something you can often get fixated about. It's like, okay, you see McDonald's, or you see in Australia, for instance, gyms is really big. So you think, okay, if you're doing a service industry, it's got to be like gyms. If you're doing a restaurant, it's got to be something like McDonald's. Well, there is a multitude and almost an infinite variety of ways to operate a franchise. And they're all different. And so that's just part of your due diligence when you're selecting one that's right for you.
All right. As we get close to wrapping up, let's just talk about lessons. Now, you've obviously learned an absolute crap load through your entire journey, through franchising, through your business ownership. What would just be, to summarise, just your top 3 lessons?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I should have a ready response, shouldn't I? Look,
go to your book.
I think top 3 lessons. I certainly think that if you're going to do well in business, you need to have a stickability. I think that's really, it's just staying through problems,
determination,
but not just determination. But you got to stay with problems until you find solutions. And I think that's something that, as entrepreneurs, we tend to have that shiny object syndrome problem where, this is really hard, I'm going to go to something else and find something easier. Well, actually, everything you go to is going to be hard at some point.
So resilient.
So it's being able to be resilient and then finally get through to the other side. Now, there are points where you just got to give up. It's a dead end. But having that resilience, as you say, and stickability.
I like
really
stickability. You're right. Lots of, that's one of the biggest problems with most entrepreneurs. You got so many distractions, and once you succeed in one thing, you think you can succeed in everything. So every opportunity that comes along, that's a good.
And that would be probably a second lesson, is learn to say no to a lot of things. Yeah. So that's say yes to a few things and say no to everything else. And what else? Last thing is, just make sure you enjoy the process.
How about consistency? Yeah. I love that one, because lots of people can't stick to it. They don't do. This guy's this is the champion of. He did a. What did you do? 365 days of a podcast or something.
Video blog.
It's ridiculous.
Video blog every day for
I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. Yeah.
One of the key sayings I've learned in my business career is boring is profitable.
Yeah.
Which really relates to what you just said, right? Say no to everything else and focus on one thing, do it really well. But as entrepreneurs, it's hard to do that because our brain's going one way. And from a business point of view, you should do exactly what you just said. And anyone listening in, 100% agree from everything I've learned over the last 10, 15 years. My question to you is, if you were to do it again, tell your younger self, go back previously when you first started, what would you do the same and what would you do differently?
It's hard to answer that, because I would do things a lot differently than what I would do back then, but then I don't think I would know what I knew unless I made all the mistakes that I made. So that's really hard to answer. But one thing I would say to my younger self is just like, give yourself some slack and give yourself some time. You don't need to be in such a mad rush. It's all good, So
don't want to conquer the world in 3 years. You want to do it in 10 or 15.
Well, that I think is a really important mindset to have as an entrepreneur. Often we're always trying to look at, what am I going to achieve in 1 year, 3 year, 5 year? And I find that if you can start thinking about 10 years or 20 years, you make way better decisions, way better decisions. We're in such a mad rush. We want to achieve these targets or make this amount of money here. And it's like, that's where I made most of my mistakes, was actually trying to make a lot of money in a quick period of time doing things. And when I say quick period of time, I'm talking about, 12 months to 36 months.
That's so well said. Great advice. That's the Elon Musk, isn't it? You're so futuristic rather than trying to worry about trying to make a heap of money next year.
Yeah. One of the things I'm seeing more and more is, entrepreneurship has become this buzzword. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, whether it's on TikTok or wherever it is. Everyone's an entrepreneur. and you would see when Education Institute starts implementing entrepreneurship as a subject, that's when you start seeing it's catching, right? Yeah. One of the big things that I from your book is that education piece and the financial acumen, all of that stuff. You, from what I understand, you're trying to build like some little business school within your own business, right? Yeah. What's the advice you would give to a aspiring entrepreneur, and what do you want to teach in this business school if you had to run it?
Look, I think business should be seen as a craft. So there is and it takes time to develop, and it takes time to become good at it. And so there's no magic bullets in business. It's just a lot of you need to get a few things right, or many things right, and it does take time to develop that understanding. And as a business owner or an entrepreneur, you do need to be a bit of a generalist. So you need to know a little bit about marketing and sales, and a little bit about operations. But look, the way I see our franchisees being educated in our system is particularly our unit franchisees. Most of our master franchisees are already very sophisticated business owners. So these guys are already, a lot of them come in and are already millionaires. Like, they're just looking at their next venture. But for a unit franchise, they're looking at say this may be their first business. So I want to teach them all aspects of the business. I want them at the end of it to say, wow, I know how a business operates, how to make a business profitable, why customer service isn't so important. And really, that's all that business is. It's just about solving problems for people that people are willing to pay for. That's it. That's there. But there's a lot that goes into that, obviously.
All right, let's wrap it up with a quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Should I put a timer on?
Let's go.
What's the biggest misconception people have about the cleaning industry?
The biggest misconception is that you can only have a small business when you have a cleaning business. I hear that all the time. People often, I tell them that I've got a cleaning business, and they say, what's it like mopping floors? And it's been a while since I've done that, but it's fun.
Beach or mountains?
I live out in the country near the mountains, so I'll say mountains.
The strangest thing you've ever had to clean up?
Before Urban Clean, I cleaned a house that was infested with cockroaches and had cockroaches falling from the ceiling. So that was probably the strangest thing I ever did.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't do residential cleaning.
One piece of advice you'd give 18-year-old Damien?
You've got plenty of time.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I'd say radical humility.
Your favourite cleaning product?
Magic Sponge.
The most used app on your phone?
Pikmin Bloom.
What?
Yeah.
What's that?
We have to double click on that one.
Yeah. What? Pikmin Bloom. What did you say?
Pikmin Bloom. So my daughter got me into this. So
here we go.
So there's these little creatures who go around, and they have to attack mushrooms, and they collect postcards, and then you have to scatter flowers around. And so this is something that my daughter and I, we're often we're exchanging postcards, we're fighting mushrooms here, and you could do this all around the world. And so whenever I'm doing travel overseas, she's like, oh, make sure you get some postcards for me. Make sure you say I try to actually try to get as much out of. I don't want to be on the phone as much. So
this is a connection with your daughter. Reason. Yeah, love it.
Right, so I know we share a passion for aviation, and you're a pilot. What's your dream aircraft?
I think there's dream aircrafts because there's no single aircraft that does everything. So yeah, I would probably a Pilatus. I would love one of those, but oh gosh,
Is that small or big for a non-aircraft person?
Yeah, there's as big as a turboprop, I think. But I would, but then maybe probably some aerobatic planes is probably.
I know this is a quick fire round, but I want to ask this question quickly.
Yeah.
What got into flying? Like, was that the arts degree or?
You love this arts degree, don't you?
It could be all the languages.
No, it was actually COVID. So,
okay.
Yeah, in 2020, everyone was stuck on the couch and they're like, well, I'm going to learn how to fly. So that's what I did.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So if you're Prime Minister for a day, what's the one thing you'd change?
Well, let's pretend I was a dictator Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have to go through the Senate or something like that, but I would just do a flat taxation system and it's like a 15%. And then if you can't make things work under that, then it should be done.
Right, your go-to productivity hack.
Not doing something.
One thing you can't live without.
Oh, God.
Best book you've ever read.
Bible, that'll be a follow-up for that one.
Podcast you're currently listening to.
I'm listening to the Revolutions podcast by Mike Duncan.
What's your favourite way to unwind after a tough day?
A bike ride.
If you weren't running Urban Clean, what would you be doing?
Probably writing or doing documentaries.
Prediction. What's the biggest change we're going to see in 2025 in Australia?
I think we're going to see. I think the just going sort of macro political and economic. I think the US election was a bit of a watershed, and I think that's going to. I'm not sure whether we'll have a change of government this year, but I certainly see that there's going to be a trend away from sort of the woke sort of economy and cultural milieu.
Yep. Single most important attribute that you need for success?
Persistence.
Where are you 5 years from now?
Hopefully doing what I'm doing, but much better than what I'm doing it right now.
What a good way to finish. Thank you so much for your time. You're an inspiration. Love what you're doing. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Damien.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this exciting episode of the Mastering Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, hit that subscribe button now and share this episode with a friend. Until next time.